Hello, everybody, and welcome to AWS On Air. I am one of your hosts, Kyle Lee, and we are here at Remars, an event that's all about automation, AI, ML, all kinds of cool things, even space. So I'm joined here with my co-host, Kyle. You want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Kyle. I'm the other Kyle, and we're going to be talking about some pretty cool technology that was built on Amplify with our guests here, and I'm really excited. From what I've been hearing, it's this is something that could have been very helpful growing up, and I wish it had existed when I was. I mean, who am I kidding? I'm still growing up. Never grow up. Never grow old. I'll turn it over to Michael.
Yeah, on that note, welcome everybody. My name is Michael Leendo, Senior Developer Advocate on the Amplify team. If you're not familiar with Amplify, really it's a set of tools and services that we provide to really expedite the ability to create applications from prototype all the way to production. Now, today you're going to hear about some of those services, and for that, I'm going to turn it over to Abhi Pando, who is the CEO of Knowt.
Hey everyone, my name is Abhi Pando. I'm the CEO of Knowt. I'm actually a recent graduate of Rutgers University. I still live in New Jersey. And just to give you guys a little bit of an intro about what Knowt is, it's basically an app that uses artificial intelligence to analyze the terms and concepts in the notes that you've written, and then creates flashcards and quizzes instantly to study from them. On top of that, on Knowt, you can write and find thousands of notes that you can also study from. So it's a complete sort of study experience from the top to bottom.
Awesome. So tell me, Abhi, like, why did you actually develop this thing?
Yeah, so when we were we started this in high school. So when we were in high school, we noticed that a lot of people were writing notes, including us. But what we realized was there was like sort of a disconnect. Everybody was writing notes, but not everybody was doing well in school. As particularly us, main point was we were not doing well in school, and we tried to understand, why that was. So we tried to look, and it turned out that we thought the most reason we were not doing so well is because we were spending most of our time writing notes rather than studying. So like by the time we wrote notes or prepared our study materials like flashcards or anything that we could study from, we'd had spent like maybe 2.5 hours during the day doing that, and then we'd spend like a half an hour studying. So there was this sort of gap where we were spending more time preparing than actually studying. So we wanted to work on knowing, I guess instead of studying harder, we just decided to create an app, which is a story in itself. But we started to create an app that would get us to studying much quicker, and that's what Knowt does. It gets you to studying 10 times faster than you were before, so you can focus on actually studying the information rather than preparing for it.
So what I heard is that you were spending about 2 hours, just preparing the notes, and you were taking notes, and they weren't as strong. So you were like, hey, people are already taking notes on this subject. Why don't I just make a platform that will make it so that I don't have to take notes?
It's like
And
a
those
virtual
2 hours
study
are
buddy.
now mine.
2 hours for
Yeah.
studying, right?
Yeah.
For studying. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's also like this sort of like disconnect here, but like whenever you wrote notes, like it's not like you can interact with the notes like personally. So like you can reread them, but it's not really going to help you remember stuff. So people in our high school would go and create like sort of flashcards, in whatever way you could, and that whole process was just a really long time where you're just not actually learning the material, you're just creating stuff.
Because how many times would you actually carry around a box of flashcards to go to study,
Yeah,
or then lose those
exactly.
cards?
Exactly.
I love the
So,
idea here that you were scratching your own itch, but what's fascinating me is that you were doing this in high school when just had this idea of building out an app. That's crazy to
Yeah.
me. I wasn't doing that in high school.
yeah, I wish I was doing that in high school. I mean, you're a CEO now, so
Yeah.
you're doing okay.
My notes were encrypted, but that's just my excuse for bad handwriting. But so you mentioned, you're able to share notes. Was it always like that? Were you always able to share notes right off the start from your app, or was there like only a localized version of this at first?
Yeah, no, this is sharing notes actually came much later. I think by the time we added sharing notes when we were juniors or like maybe seniors in college. So this is a relatively new thing. At the beginning, you could only write notes for yourself, and you would basically have all the features of notes, basically like getting the quizzes. We didn't even have automatic flashcards at the time; it was just quizzes. But the sharing notes came a lot later. That's like really when we started to scale into a company rather than just like a fun project that we were just working on.
So the sharing of the notes, I'm assuming that's the part where you started to need like a back end, and you're going to need these different types of resources. So can you tell me a little bit about like the architecture of Note and like kind of some of the services that you're using in order to get some of these processes working?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. That when we started to realize that people wanted to share and find notes, because there are a large number of people that write their own notes, but there's also a large number of people that don't write notes for themselves or don't write it on certain subjects that that they just don't want to study for. So that's really where we started this shift into finding and sharing notes, and that's really where AWS came in, like you mentioned. So that's when we sort of shifted to the cloud. We started using AWS. We used technologies like AWS Amplify, AppSync, Lambda, and Sagemaker. In terms of like how we set up our architecture, firstly we use AppSync for our connection between our backend and front end. So we have a React front end that calls our AppSync APIs, which basically get routed to our Lambda so that we can fetch data from DynamoDB. And then I mentioned the algorithm, right? The one that turns your notes into flashcards and quizzes. That's sort of located on our Fargate instance, and it gets called from our Lambdas as well. And then, to handle all the account management, user authentication, account creation, that's where we use Amplify with Cognito. And to kind of put a bow on everything, we have our CI/CD pipeline for our React front end, which will do auto Dockerize for the web app, upload to ECR, and then deploy our to our load balanced ECS.
So you mentioned a couple of the core technologies that help make this happen. And so for those that heard the term Fargate, Fargate is the managed container service that AWS offers, to where you don't need to manage the underlying infrastructure to run your containerized application. And then Cognito is a user identity store to create your user pools and provide some sort of authentication challenges. But ultimately, how do users authenticate and get authorized to your application?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Just to shed some light on the AppSync side of things, AppSync is a relatively new service, but it's managed GraphQL right on AWS. So you can define your schema, and with the power of Amplify, even you can have all of your resolvers connected to multiple data sources. DynamoDB being one of those, our NoSQL database, or you can have a direct Lambda integration. In which case, it sounds like you're using just that to call some of these backend services that aren't directly supported with Amplify. It's a great way to keep in touch with the rest of the AWS ecosystem.
Right. Exactly. You guys got it.
And Abik, I had a question. So like there you my question is like essentially why did you choose to move to AWS? Like what was like the enticing thing that made you, I want to use Fargate and AppSync and Amplify and all these different services together? Like what kind of brought you to AWS?
Yeah, so before, like when we were talking about the localized nodes, we still had our sort of initial infrastructure set up on AWS just because it was super easy to get started. I think there was like some sort of incentives for students, and so that's really where we had like our basic infrastructure set up. So when it came time to scale, we actually got in touch with, or somebody got in touch with us from AWS EdStart, and they kind of walked us through these technologies that could really help us scale the platform and build the platform that we wanted to. Like we had the vision for the platform, but like to get to it, that's really where AWS EdStart came in and sort of guided us through all these new technologies and said, hey, you could use this or you could use that, and it completely changed the game for us. Like we were able to launch our new platform in like less than I think 6 months, which without the help of the team at EdStart, like I don't think it would have been nearly possible to do in that short of a time.
Oh, that's amazing. That's quite the testimony. So, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about EdStart, make sure you check the link. It should be in the chat. But enough talking. Avik, I want to see this thing in action. Like I have to see it.
Do we have a demo? We have a demo, don't we?
Yeah, I'd love to show you guys the demo. It worked. Like everything I've described right now has been pretty magical, but like once you see it in action, that's where things start to come together pretty nicely.
All right, let's take a look. So we can see your screen, and I see we're at the home page of Knowt. Awesome.
Yeah. So there's actually two different ways you could use Knowt. The homepage is obviously the one where you can write your own notes. So this is your notebook. Your homepage acts as your notebook. You can see I have one note here. I have one folder here for when I was learning for the AWS certification. But this is basically my notebook. To create new notes, there's like two different ways. You could sort of jump in here, and then you could create a folder, create a note. Very simple, organized. So you can actually create a note directly on our app, or you could import from Google Drive or any PDF that you have. I'll just jump in and show you how the note taking part works. So you click create a note, and this is sort of your active notebook, right? So this is where you go in and you type your notes, and you can see you have access to all your files. You could even jump into a different note if you wanted to. But we'll get started, and I have something saved on my clipboard, so I'll just paste that. But like the most famous use case for Knowt is generally for like history notes. So I have something for the Civil War, but really I think the power of Knowt, is definitely our automatic creation. But we've created a really really great experience for you to write notes. So if you want to start typing inside of our app, we've made it super nice. You don't even have to like use your mouse. You could just use your keyboard, and you can actually intuitively add stuff. So like if I wanted to add like a list, right, I could just type in list, and I can choose between a list to add to. And you can do that for highlighting colors. Like if I wanted to add a red highlight, I could do that too. So this is really just a sort of hands-on experience that you don't get on many different apps. And just to simplify the process, I have a note saved, but you can sort of organize notes in a very neat manner. Like you can use collapsible.
Oh, it's almost like you came prepared or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yes, I had a feeling. But
It's
this is
pretty cool to see
basically.
these notes. Do you mind clicking
Yeah.
the hide button just so we can take a look at some of these as you're putting these items in here?
Sorry, what button?
On the StreamYard link, can you click on hide just so
Oh
we can get
yeah,
that full
sure.
experience?
Oh yeah, got it.
There we.
Alright.
Oh yes.
Yeah, there we go.
And so now
yeah.
I'll say I'll be the first to admit and probably get made fun of. I use Markdown pretty frequently to write out my notes because then I'll use something like a code repository to show me the formatted value just so things pop out more. And this to me, it looks like you're able to use like a slash command. Shout out to IRC if you're familiar with that. So you get to use slash commands to help format your notes here. Now, when you're typing these notes, is it auto saving in the background, or if I accidentally close my tab, is it, oh no, there's all my notes?
Yeah, no, everything's synced. As soon as you type it, it gets saved. So there's no save button that we've made. You just type and we handle everything else.
Ooh, well, that's great.
I like that.
Yeah, so
I like this. I like the fact that you can do those slash commands because it really makes me feel like, okay, you can be a power user of this and like really get going. And like
it's like
now you're like on par with those people that take those really pretty notes that have them all highlighted in blue and red. And
I remember
all the
sitting
things.
in class and folks had highlighters, and I'm just thinking, if I start taking notes, I'm gonna be distracted from what I'm being taught, and so then I end up not having notes because I wanted to focus, and so that was always really a challenge.
Must be a Kyle thing. I don't know.
It might be. We've synced together.
Yeah, no, you caught on perfectly. This is a Markdown editor. We've made it so that you can type the pretty notes, and the pretty notes come into play, in the later part of the demo. But essentially, you can share and find notes, right? So we want people to create really beautiful notes that anybody can sort of read and instantly go through and just understand, right? To make notes sort of more comprehensive. So that's like a big part of the app
Well,
in
hold on.
general.
You said the pretty. Oh, hold on. You said the pretty part of the demo. This wasn't the. Okay, you need to
No,
get going. I
Yeah.
need to see more.
yeah,
I thought this was the
but
pretty part.
I'm just
no,
my mind is just blown that the fact that you're able to share these still. I mean, imagine the accessibility you have now from being able to just before it was writing notes on a notebook, and now it's globally available. So if you have someone that's learning the same subject as you but wants a different point of view about the topic that they're learning, they're going to get that additional point of view by looking at these different notes. To me, that's very exciting. So from something that's just at my desk in my small town to across the globe.
yeah, it's not been done in a way like this, and the quality of notes that people will be able to find for different subjects is going to be unbelievable. We've gotten close to 3,000 shared notes so far, so we're on our way up. But hopefully, there's a lot more coming. But we've got a lot of users putting up notes, every day. So that's always the most exciting thing. For us, it's been a large part about the notes that we're writing, but I think a huge part of Note is also the material that surrounds the notes. So like on another app, like you might be able to find somebody's notes. They probably won't be as beautiful as you see here, but then you could also get flashcards instantly, right? So we haven't even gotten to that part yet, but there's like a flashcards button on the left, where if you click it, it takes a few seconds, and it'll actually create flashcards from that note, instantly.
No,
Yeah.
no,
What?
So you're not
really?
spending time going through and manually making those. These are done on the fly. And what we do is we have like a quality sort of standard. So like you could probably see more than these. These are just the ones that we picked out. And then we do another quality check to pick out the best ones. But you can select all of these. And if the list was longer, you could even search, directly here. So like if I wanted to, we search, live. And then we've sort of created the experience around this so beautifully as well. I talk about it like it's an art project, and really for us, when we view how we constructed Node, it really was around how people will use this. So when you get your flashcard, you have a couple different options. You can go back to the note, you can go in and you can edit those flashcards, or you can study. So if you go into edit, you can actually change any words that we created. You can add your own if you really want to. And here's the really cool part. Not only can you add your own, but we actually auto define. So like if say I typed in succeed, right? You can get an automatic definition and get a flashcard that you manually created even faster than you've ever done before, right? So even if we don't cover that part of the note, like you can go in and make flashcards like rapid, right? Like it's pretty
What?
crazy. So
That is
This is
crazy. So if you
this
know you
is
needed to like
crazy.
create, flashcards just based on terms alone,
yeah,
you can do that for
easy,
different.
So
easy.
so just to clarify, and this is part of the reason of why we're sharing this at Remars, right? These questions did not exist. They're based off of the text that you just pasted into that note, right?
Yeah,
And then it generated flashcards
yeah. So you can
automatically.
always go back to these. Yeah,
That is
Wow.
next level.
That is,
I'm
and I
That
impressed.
know I keep repeating it, but all just to kind of fully transparency, I wasn't really good at learning in classroom styles, and so it was either taking notes or watching the teacher. It was neither both at the same time, and just the accessibility this provides for folks like myself, like you're either focusing on the teacher or your notes. This
right.
is mind blowing. This is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And this is just the beginning, guys. That once you've created those flashcards, we've designed a great experience around actually going through those flashcards. So if you press the study button, you actually have three different options. So you can learn concepts. So you can go through like the
What?
concept note. You can study the flashcards that we just got, or you could take a practice test. Practice test more designed for like if you're the day of the exam and you just want to go through the material really quickly. But our two study modes are really the learn concepts and study flashcards. So if
Does
I
it
press study,
Congratulations.
generate its own test?
wow.
yes, it
No,
makes
it
its own
doesn't.
test.
We were
Yeah,
No, it
actually just
yeah,
doesn't.
talking about like, what does having note cards or flashcards automatically created for you due to the studying experience, because also writing down things causes that repetition. But it
Yes.
looks like you're doing this in that platform.
Yeah. So really, I think the number one thing that we had to focus on, and something that we realized, as being students, is, you know, writing down things is great. There's no replacement for that, I would say. But if there had to be like a more effective way to learn, it's actively recalling information. There's countless studies on it. Like I don't have the specific studies in mind, but like countless studies on active recall being the best way to learn. So basically, active recall is like asking a question and trying to figure out the answer by yourself. And you'll see that once you start asking questions or answering questions, um, you'll remember the information for a longer period of time. So for us, like, yes, we want you to be able to write the notes, but you also should be able to jump into that active recall state very quickly with Note, right? So you can go in and you can study those flashcards, and we've used sort of spaced repetition technology to help you go through the material. So like, let's say I wanted to study flashcards, right? I click study flashcards. It actually asks you, hey, when do you want to know this material by, right? In the next 5 days, within 2 weeks, or just put in the date of your exam, right? So let's say my exam is next Thursday, right? If my exam is, next Thursday, I can just click next, and it'll create a custom schedule for your flashcards based on that information alone, right? And once you see that, like, this is the flashcard that you just had created, like Note created for you, you didn't even have to create, and now it'll ask you, hey, what's sort of the answer, right? So, like, let me just give you an example, right? So if you just answered this, so I know this one because I've done this
I
one
was
before.
about to
So
ask, what is the answer?
yeah, so I think it's James Buchanan. Once you press answer, it'll flip it over. It'll tell you, hey, you're right. And this is where spaced repetition comes into play. So if you thought that was easy, you can have this flashcard show up in another day. So you come back tomorrow and you'll see it again. If you didn't remember it, you'll see it again in 5 minutes. If you're 50-50, it'll show you in 45 minutes. And the great thing about Note is that this schedule adjusts. So if your exam was in 3 weeks, the times on the buttons would be larger. And if your exam was tomorrow, the times on the button would be shorter. So you'd go through the material in a spaced way, accustomed to, when your exam is. And you can go through all your flashcards that way, and you can keep track of progress, and you can always jump back and come back whenever you want.
Well, I mean, I'm actually a little bit jealous because this is gonna make school so much easier for so many people. I kind of want to go back to school just because I want to. I kind of want to use
Well,
this. It's
I'm
not fair.
studying for a certification, and so I'm just wondering.
So, Abik, we got about 2 more minutes left. Is there anything else that you wanted to show us before we wrap up?
Yeah, let me jump through this real quickly, but you can actually go and learn concepts as well. So that was flashcards. That's like the ones that we've created, but you can actually learn concepts, and we do something different here. So we actually ask you how well you know the material. So we actually create a better sort of study schedule for you. So if you know the material well, we'll give you harder questions. If you don't know anything, we'll give you easier questions. Same sort of space repetition here as well. You press next, it takes a few seconds, and it'll actually give you questions. So we're talking multiple choice, open-ended, true and false. So for example, true and false, and I'll just jump through this really quickly, but you can go through and get these questions almost instantly. So right now we're getting a lot of true and false, but yeah, you'll see multiple choice come up as well, where it's actually giving you options that you might pick, right? So this is really the special part.
That is
So
impressive.
exactly. Like before, we saw this question as a flashcard, but we didn't see other options that were trying to confuse you, right? So here we're smart enough to pick out like, hey, these are other words that they mentioned in the note. Let's present these as options, right? So we obviously know it's James Buchanan, and this is a great example of repetition. You probably knew the answer this time around as well because we had just done it a few minutes ago, right? So that's quizzing, and this is like a completely different part from flashcards, um, but these are all accessible from your own notes. But the amazing part is, if you're not a note writer, this is all accessible if you just want to explore as well. So if you click over to the explore tab, you can actually go through notes that we've categorized and organized by subject. So if I go into like US history, you can see it's, there's, 290 notes here so far. You can organize them based on your topic. You can see that people have, wrote their notes. They've been rated by certain students. And so this is a great way to just jump into things. So if I wanted to click on, one of these notes, you'd see that you can actually see all of the flashcards for that student's notes. And then you can even, view the note. So this is a great way to see other people's notes and other people's flashcards. And we've done this, to a higher degree. So we've also done it by organizing into textbooks. So you can actually see your own textbook notes here as well. We're adding new textbooks every day. I think we've got about 70 new textbooks coming out this month. So that's a pretty exciting thing. And you'll see notes for each and every one of those, right? So if you click into this textbooks, for example, you can see it's organized by chapters. You can click into a chapter. You can see sort of the flashcards for this note, and you can see the note. So you can see how well everything is organized. And the best part is, for a student who wants to create these things, it's so easy, right? Like they put in their note and the flashcards are made. And then for the students who want to discover and use other people's notes, there's always a sort of a catalog ready to sort of use there. So that's really the magic that Knowt, brings.
Got it. So thank you so much, Abik, for showing us Knowt. Like this is an amazing, amazing tool. Like what you have been able to accomplish with Knowt is wow. Like I am truly blown away. This
Incredible.
is quite an impressive thing that you've accomplished. And like just to think that everything kind of started when you or everything like started to scale out when you started to move it over to AWS, and you got all the information from Ed Start, and then you started working with all the correct technology so that it could scale, and then now you're connecting people and essentially making school or studying in general so much easier. Really amazing, really great stuff. If anybody that's watching, if you're interested in learning more about the customer story, make sure you check out the link. There's going to be so much more that you can learn about Knowt and how everything works. And then if you want to start using Knowt, we also have a link that will be in the chat, and then you'll also see it right here on the screen where we're going to be where you're able to sign up and actually start using this so that you can nail all of your tests coming up. But thank you again so much, Abik. We really loved having you here, and once again, congratulations on the app. Such a great thing.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you guys. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this session. Thank you all for watching and joining us. And remember, here at Remars, we have so many more sessions coming up. So make sure you keep watching. Have a good day.